Yeah.
Israel.
No, South America, I thought.
Yeah, that was.
All right. It is 6:02.
Out of
We'll
the
call the
country.
meeting to order. I'll
Yeah.
turn it over to you, Greg, for roll call.
Chairman Canfield,
Here.
Beecham,
Here.
Caldwalder,
Here.
Schwaben,
Here.
and Spicer is absent.
I would make a motion to approve the absence of Tamara. She's on a trip overseas, so.
And I support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 2, approval of the agenda.
I just have one minor change I'd like to, in front of the information items, in front of A, we have Pam Landis with us this evening from SPART or LEAD, and she's going to give us an update on the biodigester. Just put that up in front of the informational items. Other than that, no other changes to the agenda.
With that, I would make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 3, approval of the minutes of the November 13th regular board meeting.
Can I just add one comment? I guess you don't have to do it this time, but for future reference, under board comments, I mean, it might be nice just to say like Strauben had no comments or something like that. I don't know, it just seems weird that we kind of go through 4 people and then don't say anything. I know I said something, but I think I was just talking more about my kids or something funny, but
Okay.
I just think it's more complete if you just said Strauben had no comments, and that way nothing was skipped over, so to speak. But you don't have to fix it this time, but just as a future thing.
No problem.
Any other changes?
And with that,
And I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll support.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You also have the closed session minutes in your packet.
I would make a motion to approve the closed session minutes as presented.
And I would support.
We have a motion and support. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 4, public comment for items not on the agenda. We have no public tonight, so we will move to action items. Greg?
All right. The first item in your packet under action items is for approval of a block purchase of power from Michigan Public Power Agency, or through Michigan Public Power Agency. As you remember, last winter we had some extremely cold weather in January, February, March. We had high prices of electricity during that time when we were buying off the market, and so MPPA is working with us this year to try and minimize that. Last year, our overall average cost to purchase power was about 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour. During that 7-week period that we had that extremely cold weather they called the polar vortex, our average cost off the market was about 11 cents. So you can see it is significantly higher than what we normally pay. And so MPPA has arranged to buy a block of power for those 3 months, January, February, March. And the cost to us would be about $107,000 instead of what we paid last year off the market, about $280,000. And a chart is included. It shows what the prices would be for those individual monthly blocks and how much we would be buying at that price. Again, this is at least the January price is higher than what we usually pay, but not anywhere near as high as what we paid last year. So,
Is this where does the MPPA is buying this with for all MPPA members or for a group? Do they have to have X amount people?
they're buying for a group. They don't have to have an X amount. They're just buying what they think each individual utility would need.
And I guess my question is, And another question is, when we get the gas situation all worked out and we get the Rolls Royce, like, why would we not purchase this and use, would we then be able to use our combustion turbines?
We could, it would depend on the market situation.
I mean, so,
If we can, let's
I mean,
say,
can we run those without having MPPA say turn them on, or are we locked into having MPPA say, okay,
no,
there's a call for it, run yours now?
well, the way it works is called the day-ahead market,
Okay,
and so we let them know a day ahead of time if we want to run the next day. And so based on what it looks like temperatures are going to be, what the pricing is in the market, we can say we either want to run or we don't want to run. And so that's how it would work, and we can do that anytime. It doesn't make sense to, let's say our combustion turbines, the cost break-even point is $75 or 7.5 cents. That doesn't make sense for us to run at 7.5 cents if we can buy at 6.5 cents.
right.
Okay, so we still might buy blocks to cover ourselves, but that doesn't mean that we can't sell it into the market on the days those prices are high. When it goes up to $300 or $400 a megawatt hour or something like that, then we're free to go into the market with our combustion turbines anytime we want.
So what are we purchasing?
We're purchasing 2 megawatts
Okay,
for January, February, 1 megawatt for March, and the price we're paying, the maximum price we're paying is $68.45 in January, $64.10 in February, and $58.5 in March.
so what does that break down per? I'm just looking at, what our average, we paid 6.5 cents.
That-
Last, we paid 11 cents. So what does that break down to?
I'm sorry, it's just a difference in decimal points, Barry.
Okay.
So this would be 6.8 cents, 6.4 cents, 5.8 cents
Okay,
Cents per,
kilowatt hour. This number's
Okay.
this number's a megawatt hour.
Okay.
On the sheet that they gave me, and I put it into kilowatt hour terms. Sorry about that.
so we're basically hedging, is that? what we're
Yes,
doing?
sir. That's what we're doing.
We're not going to pay 11 cents again,
We're not going to pay 11 cents again.
at least for a bunch of it.
Why should we do this every year then? Or does power sometimes get cheaper through the winter?
Power does sometimes get cheaper through the winter. And normally we would buy it off the market. For the last couple of years, we've been buying it off the market at 3.5 cents or 4 cents or 4.2 cents. It was just during those spikes last year, it was the first time in maybe 8 years that it had spiked that high in the winter. Normally our
Okay,
peaks are in
right.
summer. You don't usually get peaks in the north part of the country in the winter. Last year was an anomaly, and so there's a good possibility that the anomaly is going to repeat itself this year based on the Farmer's Almanac and all the other weather information and data that we've been able to glean. And so this is a hedge or a proactive measure to try and circumvent that this year.
plus wasn't some of the cost last year because of the transportation of coal? Wasn't there?
That still could be an issue.
Right. So I mean, right.
Right. Most of the stockpiles, because of last winter, aren't back up to 100% restocked yet this year. So that could be another piece of it again this year.
So there is the risk that the price could be a little cheaper, but it sounds like it's being forecasted to go up at some point in the winter.
Yes. I mean, most of this power, most of this 2 megawatts we buy off the market anyway. So it's just a function of whether we,
And what do we?
Well, to know hedging can go both ways, so.
yes.
Of course, it would depend on what natural gas, the cost of natural gas is, which is fluctuating, but what our solar turbine What is that? What is it approximate cost for us to run that?
The approximate cost to run the solar is about 7.9 cents.
Okay. Well, I would make a motion to authorize Lowell Light and Power to go in with the MPPA block of, with a bilateral purchase.
I had another question, but do I have to support first, or?
Why don't we
Yeah,
support and
get
then do
support,
discussion?
and then we'll do
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, I'll support them.
All right, we have support and discussion, or second, go ahead.
My question is, what's the 7 by 24, 5 by 16?
That's the hours, how much of it you're purchasing. We would be purchasing the 5 by 16, which means we'd be purchasing 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. So those are the peak times during the week. Other people might want to purchase 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So 7/24 or 5/16.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion?
So if it peaks on the weekend, then we have to pay more? Is that, or is this just like a quantity of energy we're buying that we can spread over the month? Or?
This is a quantity of energy that we're buying, but we're buying it for these specific times because
Okay.
we don't peak. We have enough other energy to cover us during those weekend hours. Because
Okay.
because most of the commercial is dropped off
Right.
on the weekend, our peak drops, and we have enough other through Bell River and Campbell and everything else to cover that. So this is just an incremental piece at the top of our load curve that we need to buy.
Okay. How much is it in terms of power that we're trying to cover?
2 megawatts.
This is the 2 megawatts.
Pardon?
You're saying this is the 2 megawatts?
Yes.
Oh,
Our
okay.
volume is 2 megawatts. 2 in January, 2 in
Two in
February,
one.
and one
Okay.
in March.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and support. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, the second item is with regard to the Rolls Royce. And as you know, we continue to move ahead with its installation. And we're at a point now where we need the new control cabinet for that. And it's a Rolls Royce, and the component cabinet for that is provided by a company called On Power out of Ohio. And it has a cost of $28,711. It was budgeted for, and it's consistent with the original estimates. So I'm asking that the board recommend the approval of that invoice from On Power for $28,711.62.
My question would be, have we, is this control panel for the Rolls Royce, is that unique to On Power, the company On Power?
Yes,
So we've only gotten one?
right.
Did-
They are the supplier for the Rolls Royce turbines.
The good news is it's in line with our original estimate.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I like about it.
So, I would recommend to purchase, to go ahead and approve the amount of $28,711.62 for On Power for the control panel for the Rolls Royce turbine.
I would support.
We have a motion and support. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
All right, thank you. Ms. Landis
Hey,
is here to give us an update on the biodigester. And I think I've mentioned to you in the last few weeks that we've started to load some feedstock in to the digester. Pam will give us an update on where we're going.
happy to be here, and I've enjoyed spending some time in Lowell in the last 4 or 5 months. We've been out here quite a bit. There's a lot of action going on at the site. I have some pictures to share with you to bring you up from where you toured this summer to where we are now. And I was here the day that the cops were pulling people over right and left. I was in a restaurant downtown. What the heck? And how they weren't going and then somebody told me they were giving away gifts. So what could be better than that? They don't do that in my town, which shall remain anonymous.
With that, I know of one person, Matt Dode, that got pulled over, and he's a coach up here at the school, and they kept on asking him, you know, what would you like for Christmas or whatever. He goes, you know, nothing, I'm a bachelor, I'm 27 years old, whatever. No, what do you know, and nothing. So he got nothing.
You had to ask.
That's very funny.
And he found out later what the whole gig was about.
Could have had his big screen TV. This is kind of what I plan to talk about tonight. We're just going to review the process. I know you've all seen it a million times, but we'll just run through that quickly. I've got some pictures of the construction process. We'll talk about where we are in the commissioning, and then what's next. There's a few things that are trailing out behind the project. So you probably remember this from our groundbreaking, but it's kind of the big picture of what's happening. We're bringing in fats, oils, and greases from restaurant grease traps. So that's one end of the hamburger. And then we're bringing in the manure from Swiss Lane Farms, which is kind of the other end of the hamburger. In addition to that, we're adding liquid waste from Lighthouse salad dressing that's going to come via pipeline. And if anybody's been over on Foreman Street lately, you can see that we are having a big effect on their headquarters right now. But they're just about done with that lift station over there and about ready to punch through the wall. So that'll be exciting. The inputs come into the process, and out of that we get digestate, which is the inert material that goes back to the farm, takes the nutrients back that they can land apply those without the odor. We have on-site wastewater pre-treatment, so we treat the liquids from our process and we treat the liquids that are left over once we skim the fats out of the Lighthouse liquid to clean it enough to go to the wastewater plant. And then we make electricity by using the gas that's created by the bacteria in the tanks. Any questions on that? I know you've all heard this part. You could probably recite it. So this is what it looked like back there in April. It looks a little different now. This is June. That's the first dig, the very first day. You can see that the canopies have already been removed from the building at this time. In July, we set these 2 beautiful tanks on the site. We're going back again inside in April. This is kind of what it looked like. It was a little dark and very empty other than your truck. In June, we did a lot of digging. Had a big dirt pile in there. In July, we had all these tanks being poured. If you look at them from left to right, that's the manure bunker that's going to go in all the way over here. Oh, I'm backwards. Okay, I got you now. This pit on the right is the pit where the pump sits to receive the solid manure and then send it to the reflow tank. The smaller tank in the middle is the tank where anything that goes in the floor drains or the liquid from the end of our process goes in there before it goes out to the wastewater. And then the tank furthest to the left is where the fats, oils, and greases come in before they're pumped to the reflow tank. And all of this is now buried up to the top of it and covered over, and should be able to see some of that. This is just about when you guys were out in August and they were building the big reflow tank outside. Did everybody get to go on that tour? That
Yeah, too.
That was amazing. You can see that they're these big strips of steel, and they have these two machines over here that feed this strip of steel in, and one folds this way and one folds this way, and then they fold them together and fold them over again, and they build it like one long spiral from the bottom up. It was absolutely fascinating to watch. And then here it is before they got the dome on. They just set it down on the ground. And that's the beginnings of the wastewater tank there. This is an interesting view. This was from Dan, the superintendent. He's on the roof of the building looking toward the schools. So this is just after they had gotten the dome on. And I don't know if you remember that there's this rubber dome. It's like the material a Zodiac boat is made out of. So that really heavy duty rubber. And then inside of there's a black one that's the same stuff. And they're supported by a pole in the middle and spokes. And right on top of those spokes is that, it's like a circus net. It's a really strong netting that they were able to walk on while they were putting the top on. And that netting, if you remember back when we came in and we talked about the natural desulfurization process, that netting is what's in there that the sulfur fumes coalesce on, and it becomes a solid sulfur that falls back into the reflow tank and binds back with those solids. So I like that view.
So what happens to the sulfur then?
When it comes back into the solids, it binds to the manure in another form, so its chemistry changes some from the bugs, and it goes back out with the phosphorus and the nitrogen and potassium that's going back with the solid manure.
Okay.
We had to alter the roof. I think you know that we had to raise the roof in a couple of sections, and this is the side where that big manure dozer is going to come in. So we had a great skylight for a while in there. This is the engine. This is the CHP, and it looks so small there, but it's really very large. It was quite the trick to see them bring that in. They basically offloaded it and wheeled it in there on dollies, and they had to like swing it over because the power comes out of the bottom of it and goes underground from it. And you'll see in later pictures that the office gets constructed and the dissolved air flotation units come in. There we go. So when we talk about pulling the liquid off from the lighthouse process, it comes into the exterior tanks as an EQ tank, so we have a way to buffer. Maybe they're not working on Sunday, but we have enough liquid in there that we can keep feeding, and then they come back on Monday and they fill that up. Well, that liquid goes into these big silver tanks, and inside of them it's like a paddle wheeler kind of, just little arms that keep coming forward like this, and it skims off the fat. There's a polymer added to the liquids up there that causes all the fat molecules to get together, and that gets skimmed off and then sent into these things here that are called the flocculators, and that then aerates the stuff a little bit more, and it goes from there in doses into the reflow tank.
You said that was the salad dressing stuff?
Yes. Yep. That is what
that comes in. So it's not the other three tanks in the beginning where it's just the manure and the fats, oils, and grease, and then this is where the special dressing, okay.
This is where the dressing comes into the building, and then the big black pipes up there are sending it out toward the tanks. So they insulated and then clad the outside of the big tank in September, and they began assembly of this dozer. This is where the manure gets dumped. There's another picture when it's got its lid and everything on it, but this one shows you the floor. So these pieces of floor in here literally dig into the manure and pull it forward like this, and it falls out that end where that little window is. It's more enclosed now. But it falls into an auger that then sends it in doses into this pump, the big B-Max pump. And that B-Max takes some liquid out of the reflow to warm up the manure and liquefy it a little bit, and then it sends doses back out to the reflow tank. There's a lot of conduit in this project. There's a lot of, this is one of my favorite pictures, there's a lot of wires. And believe you me, when you watch those guys, they know they're all labeled, you can see, but they know where every single one of those wires goes. I was amazed by the workmen on the project. The pipe fitters, the electricians, it was pretty cool. So these are the pipes that go into the pump room, which is a little bump out that we built that follows the curve of the reflow tank. And I probably should have had a picture of that pump room, but I don't. These are the control cabinets, and you can see these first 4 doors are the AD controls. Those are built in Germany by Rohring, the people who invented the upflow, downflow. And then that little cabinet that's got a black door handle down there, that's the control for the wastewater plant. And then once the wastewater tank was all finished, it had to be tested. And it's a Concrete Institute of America standard or something, how it can or can't leak. And the little red bucket down here was measuring in case there was rainfall, because we wouldn't want to cheat on whether that level is going up or down. It was a 3-day test to see whether or not it dropped 1/8 of an inch in 3 days. So it passed, very happy to say. And this is just water in there now. When these are filled up and ready to roll, they'll be filled with this black plastic media that if you've been over to the site, there's a whole bunch of it stacked up outside. That's where the aerobic bugs for the wastewater treatment congregate, is on those black media. And then in the bottom, this has now been fitted with bubblers. So there's 2 big blowers inside that will force air out here through that tank, and that aerobic treatment is what gets the biological oxygen demand low enough to be able to send it to your wastewater treatment plant. This is just a peek inside the engine. The engine arrived in September, I think, and it was a conundrum that we could not turn the lights on inside of it. You know, we've got 10 electricians working out there, and they could not turn the fluorescent lights on inside this $1 million baby. So finally, when Sebastian came from Germany, he goes, "Oh, it's just a relay." And click, there were the lights. This is the doser. That's where the manure is. Once it's delivered, it's in this configuration. So this works like a big tailgate. It's hydraulic. It comes down. The truck drives onto that, and the lid slides back, and then the manure dumps in there. They pull out, and the lid closes, and the tailgate goes back up. And that's the thing that has the walking floor inside of it. Smith Street and Chatham were paved in November, and then it rained and it snowed, and we did not get the back of the site paved by 1 day. So that's coming. This is delivery of some liquid digestate from the digester down in Freeport at Valley View. It's related to the Scenic View Farm. So we got several tankers full from there that had good, strong, active bugs, and then we got several tankers of liquid manure from Swiss Lane to fill the reflow tank up about 9 feet. And since then, we have added a truckload of manure from this beautiful truck. And we've added, I think we've taken about 3 deliveries of fats, oils, and greases. So very slowly feeding that reflow tank. Very, very slowly. And it's still being filled, but just recently they filled the upflow tank and the downflow tank. So I was just over there today, and Cody's gonna get another load of fog tomorrow, and probably get another load of manure next week. And then the dosing starts to step up, because it's making gas. We really got a break with this warmer weather, because we started this when it was 20-something. The first manure came in and it was so cold. So it's making gas, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and they were dosing it about once every 3 hours at this point, and that'll step up to once an hour. Eventually there'll be once an hour where it gets fats, manure, and DAF float from the lighthouse.
So is that the truck we got?
Yes.
Yes, that is your truck, our container. This is a picture of the control panel. The whole AD operation and the wastewater is controlled electronically. So you can see the reflow tank, the upflow and the downflow. Over here, this is a picture symbolizing those DAF tanks for the lighthouse material. This is the doser. You can tell whether it runs the ramp up and down. Then over there on that side, the separator, that's where the end product goes to be pressed, so that the liquid goes one way and the dry stuff goes another. Yeah, I was talking to Cody today, and he said it's so easy. You just go, he can just go in there and say, okay, run this pump for 2 minutes, and it does it. And he gets updates on his iPhone. I get updates on my iPhone if there's any errors or anything like that. We have been super pleased with the work we've gotten from IAI. This is Sebastian from Roaring. He's the person who came in and commissioned all the electronics. So whether or not they were wired to make the pumps and motors go in the right direction, there was a lot to sort out, even though you thought you were done at that point. He was great. The guys today were telling me that he had a favorite expression, which was to listen very carefully to you and say, yes, Dan, that is fine, but, and then he would tell you what was really going on. It's pretty cute. This is Mario. He's the biology expert from ENCO 2, and he was here for the first 7 days when we were taking the first materials in to get things started. He did a day's training with Greg and I and Tom and our operator, so we all got quite a biology lesson that day. And the thing I learned that was most interesting on the biology level is this happens in multiple stages, and it's so logical that things come in, like grease off of a hamburger is a very complex molecule. It's got a lot of parts to it. So the first bugs kind of chunk that into its elemental pieces, and then the next bugs chunk that down more, and the last bugs then are the ones that produce the methane from eating the very simplest parts.
That's kind of how we eat too, isn't it?
It is like we eat. I mean, it's just a
Break
big
down
old
the
tummy
molecules,
out
the
there.
smaller ones, and
Yeah.
different enzymes.
This is Cody Chambers. He's the operator from Infrastructure Alternatives. That's the company that we've contracted with. Very happy with his work, and he lives a mile from the facility. He's got 2 backups that have been trained now, so we just feel like we're in super good hands with these guys. They run a lot of water and wastewater plants all around this area, and they've gotten high marks from everybody we've talked to, too. So here we are in December, and this is the view if you were looking out of the front offices at Lighthouse lately. So they're putting in this lift station so that when their liquids come out, they've got a way to get a head on it and pump it to us. This is Dan Kowalski. He's the superintendent on the project, and he's been there about 6 to 6 days a week since July, I think. He is super dedicated. Can't say enough good things about him. He's a great guy. And I think you guys have all met Drew before. He's the project manager. He also has done a yeoman's job, a ton of work, and you can imagine the learning curve for everybody as we're doing a first project, first one of these kinds of digesters in the States, first digester for a lot of the subs that we're working on it, and it's really gone extremely well, extremely well. And this guy, he's been super. I mean, he's Johnny on the spot when they needed to know something about this or that. He was there. He saw an issue with the existing power panel about a month before anybody really woke up to what he was talking about. So he's been super, super helpful. So we took the liquids in early November, and the solids, we started a load. The DAF float, we won't take until around the 5th of January, and we'll start with their weaker liquor, so that those bugs can get accustomed to it. It's all about treating those little critters delicately. The CHP test will happen about January 9th, and then we expect to be fully running the end of February, and we have to run 30 days continuous to meet what's called our commercial operation date. So we expect that before the end of March.
Yeah, standpoint.
Dissolved air flotation.
Okay.
So those were those silver tanks where they add a little bit of polymer to coagulate the fat. We've been having ongoing discussions with Lowell Public Schools. I had 6 science teachers and their curriculum developer tour the project with me in September, and they are so excited. We worked on one grant and were not successful to get that funded, but we'll renew our search after the first of the year to fund a few pieces for a field trip, some kind of an animation so that the kids could see it before they come, so they're not just looking at a bunch of pipes and wires. They can get some idea of what happens and what these bugs do. And then we're working in conjunction with Swiss Lane Farms as well, so that we'll pilot things with Lowell schools next year, and then after that we'll open it up to perhaps bring in inner city Grand Rapids kids that can do the morning at the farm and then come here in the afternoon, and it's very exciting. That's something I'm thrilled about. So we have a few lingering issues because of the weather and timing. The paving in the back won't happen till spring. Similar with the pipeline cleanup, they have a couple of drill points on the school grounds and over at Lighthouse, and because of what it is now, they've done what they can, but they'll have to go back and plant seed and do the final cleanup on that in the spring. Exterior painting, I don't think that's going to happen till spring. And then planting trees, we missed that window, so that'll happen in the spring. And once all of those things have happened in the spring, we will have some kind of a ceremonial event with a ribbon cutting and a big huzzah. So I think that's all I have.
Some things. I would hope that you'd also reach out to Alma College. Because
Oh, sure, yeah.
that was the group that when we toured over in
Germany.
in Germany,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
they had a group there. So again, in that trip, they seemed to be very excited about it. So I'd hope that you would reach out to them And then and I don't know if it's us or, I know you're talking about the trees and the berm and certainly a lot of things to do. I was doing work over at the Catholic Church and I was wondering about if low light power at some point, and again, I don't know what the expense is, but with the chain link fence, you've seen where they, at a diagonal, that they put the little plastic strips in that kind of block some of the view, and I just, was thinking of that might also be something that we might want to look at. Again, I have no idea what the expense is or whether we want to do that, or I think it's probably after they get all the trees and everything, and maybe we don't want to do that because we want to show it off.
Right.
So.
Well,
I was kind of thinking it'll matter. It's just,
Right.
it's a neat thing to see.
that works. Trying to get back to the beginning here. We're already done improvements over where we were.
Right.
It really looks, the day that they were ready to pave it, it looked so good out there. I mean, it was all graded and it just looked great. So I don't think you're gonna wanna cover it up, but that's just my opinion.
With the building painted and everything.
Any other questions?
Congratulations. Exciting stuff.
It is
Very
exciting.
Are you currently working with other projects out there? I mean,
We are, we just.
got proposals out for other
Yep.
communities and different things?
We
or-
just had a little blurb in the paper that we've been selected as the developer for a project in Coopersville.
Okay,
It's on a dairy farm, and we're able to do it because Consumers Energy did a request for proposal in the summer. So the power purchase agreement is already done with Consumers, and we're in the process of establishing the cost to do the facility, and then we'll secure the investment, and that one should break ground this summer.
and will that be upflow, downflow? I mean,
Yes.
You're
It'll be-
primarily just focusing in on that technology, or
We
are you
see that
looking at other?
technology as having advantages. I mean, all the things that you guys have heard from us, that it's 20% more efficient, it takes up less space, it takes less parasitic load, it creates more gas. So we're firm believers in that technology.
Good.
All right.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is very exciting.
Well, I'm glad you feel the excitement, because we are, I mean, every day you go there and it's something new, and it's very exciting.
Good.
Good.
Thanks again, Pam.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam.
I'll make a slow exit.
Okay. Have a happy holiday.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Do you need help with the elevator?
No, I think I can handle it. It's a little scary. It's like where you sit in the bed.
It is.
Takes you back to grade school.
Right.
Yeah. I was in Montana skiing Saturday until I wasn't. All right, thanks, Greg.
No, thank you, Pam. If you get stuck, holler.
All right.
Loud.
But holler loud.
Got your cell phone? You can call us.
All right. So we're finally, I think, seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on this, and that's exciting to think that we're going to be. That was one of the considerations in our purchase power agreement that we talked about before on the bilaterals. If they had been up and running earlier, we wouldn't have had to buy as much, because we'd have that coming into our system. So based on the fact that they've moved it from January to February, now to the beginning of March, was really part of the impetus for that purchase. So in any event, we're getting close. So it's a good thing.
Just sit on it.
Say, Perry, what's happening? Performance data for the month of November. The total electric sales were good for the month of November, up from the previous year, almost 7%. And although we're still a little under year-to-date for the physical year, it was a good month. The residential sales were down slightly, but was more than made up for by the increase in sales from commercial. So, all in all, it was a good month from a sales and kilowatt-hour usage standpoint. We halfway down the page there, we see what the actual electric requirements in terms of kilowatt hours were for the month before. And again, we can see that that is up almost 500,000 kilowatt hours from the previous year. Peak demand was up as well. The billing statistics, we only change quarterly, so those we saw back in October. We flip the page, look at the cash and investment. We're, again, talked a little bit about the fact that October was a 3 payroll month, and we paid some invoices on the turbine and that type of thing, and so our cash was down, but it's the same as it was pretty much the previous month, hanging around that between 1.6 and 1.7 million mark. The delinquents were, I think this is the first time that we've had zeros the 2 months in a row. So that's great. And again, that's on customers that are current customers. We remember made that delineation. And from the aging analysis, we're staying consistent. It was down slightly from the previous month and the previous year, but yeah, it looks good. On to the actual income statement itself. We have had a good month in November. Sales were pretty close to budget. Still slightly under, but close. Year-to-date, we're $179,000 under budget. And again, I think we can attribute that primarily to the fact that overall we've had not as hot temperatures in the summer and not as cold yet so far in the winter, even though we had that one cold snap. On the average, we're above normal temperatures. As you go down over to purchase power, as you would expect with the revenue down, the purchase power is down as well, which is a good thing. They help to offset each other. We were under in purchase power by a few $1,000s, and we're under still year-to-date $80,000 on purchase power for the budget. Again, as you go through most of the rest of the expenses, we're under budget in most all the categories. At 5 months year-to-date, we're under $113,000 through those 5 months for operating expenses. We had a good operating income month. Again, a little less than what was budgeted. We're still a little under budget year-to-date, but only $65,000 through 5 months. And that carries right on through down to our net income, $67,000 under budget year-to-date, but we did have a net income of almost $12,000 for the month. Any questions on the income statement? If not, we have the capital expense sheets next, and you can see that either in the total by general ledger number or by actual individual project, which is the second sheet, we're doing well. We're 5 months through the year. We still have about $750,000 left. Is what we budgeted for the available capital budget this year. And as I mentioned before, after we have numbers for December, we get through half the year, we'll kind of true that up and see where we are in terms of what we expect cash flow to be for the rest of the year, and make any adjustments that we need to make. The outage report shows that we had 3 outages in the month of November, and all 3 of those were tree-related in the month of November.
Isn't that every day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you say they're out for 30 minutes, I mean, I take it it's just a rough estimate, or you guys just around it? 'Cause I know that I wasn't home at the time, my parents were, and they were like, yeah, the power's out for a few minutes, and they came back. I mean, they made it sound like a lot less than half an hour.
That's the time that from the time we get the first call until we get a call from the outside folks, the line folks, saying everything's back on, we're moving off the site. So somebody could have had electricity prior to that, but by the time they got everything finished,
Right, and then
buttoned
check
down and
everything
check,
out. Okay.
you get off the site, that's how we register the time. On to the manager's report. From an MPPA MMEA standpoint, I'd given you some information last month on the UP issue. I gave you some more information this month. This was a draft letter that we composed at MMEA. We haven't sent it out yet. We're all ready to send it out the first week in December. And the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission finally had received enough comment. They got comment from Carl Levin, they got comment from Debbie Stabenow, they got comment from a couple of Michigan representatives, from the governor, from the Attorney General, and they said, okay, we're going to postpone the rate increase to the UP because of this issue for 90 days. So we got kind of a 90-day stay of execution, so to speak, for the UP. And so we didn't send a letter until we wait to see what the outcome of that inquiry. FERC has asked for more information, and why is it receiving all this attention. So all of the letters, all of the information that we've been sending to FERC finally got their attention. They're going to take a harder look at it. So what I thought was important was the content of the letter, and it gave you a better understanding of what the issues were and what's going on there. And we'll see what happens, see how it develops. But it's getting national attention. It's something that could happen in other areas, in other parts of the country. And it could be precedent setting. Whatever the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission decides to do with this could have impact on other areas down the line. As we get to this point, and we've been talking about it for a couple of years, and we're starting to see signs of it, as we get to the point where it's not cost effective to keep coal plants in operation anymore. And that's one of the basic components of what's happening in the UP, is the owner of the Presque Isle power plant doesn't want to operate it anymore. It's not cost effective. And so, yet it's the only energy source in the UP. You can talk about energy coming from some other place on the grid, but at some point in time you have to recognize the reality of the fact that just because Cliffs is buying energy from a company that generates it down in Indiana doesn't mean that it actually ever gets to Cliffs, the mine operation in the UP. That energy is really coming from that Presque Isle power plant. And if you close it down, that's a huge impact. And so those types of things are going to start to occur more and more often. You can talk about it in theory, and like I said, on paper you're buying energy from someplace else in the country, but ultimately the realities of where that power comes from is going to come into play. So whatever the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission decides to do with this is going to have an impact throughout the country. Well, I'll keep you posted as what happens and any information, more information that comes down the pike. Tom is in Washington this week with APPA. They're doing the RP3 submissions review, and he should be done probably today and on his way back. Upcoming is the annual Line Workers Rodeo and Operations Technical Conference in Sacramento in the spring. If anybody's interested in going, just let Sharon know, let us know. The annual Legislative Rally is scheduled for March 9th through 11th in D.C. I for sure will be attending that, and again, anyone interested, please get in touch with Sharon or myself. And the last item there is that there's a special conference annually that APP holds for people involved in joint action agencies, which is what MPPA is. And as chairman there, I'm going to that conference this year on January 9th through 13th, and MPPA picks up the tab for that. System generation upgrades. We've already talked about the biodigester with Pam, and we've talked a little bit about the Rolls-Royce as well, as we approved the purchase of the control panel. So we're moving along on both those projects. The next item is a policy review for Section 5 of our operating policies, which is customer accounts and billing administrative policies. And in your board packet was the information that we put together. Steve and his team in the billing and accounting department have done most of the work on this. And so I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and he's going to lead us through it.
Okay. As you know, we're reviewing and updating or amending or adding to or deleting from our policies. So over the last month, the office staff had a couple meetings and went through the entire Section 5 of our policy book, and we got with Anna. And what you have in your packet is the entire Section 5 policy book with changes or deletions or additions in red. The first page you should have received is kind of a summary of the different policies and what the proposed changes are, or if there's not a proposed change to a section. So I was thinking we can walk through where we have any changes. If you have any questions about a policy in particular, or how it works, or anything of that nature, let me know. But any policies where we do not have a change, probably going to skip over those unless you have any questions. Also, a lot of the changes we are proposing are wordsmithing or rearrangement of kind of words or paragraphs just to make more sense, or slight additions of things that we have been doing lately, but they just weren't listed. So just moving right into policy 5.1, information to customers. Letter D, right now we are now putting our policies on Light and Power's website, so you'll see the last few words in item D. We're proposing to have the policy read and on Lowell Light and Power's website. Pretty basic right there. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments about.
I had some, just that
Yeah.
all of these are kind of similar, publishing information, or like at the end of B it says be it mail, radio, newspaper. I mean, would it be worth to mention like email and website as well? I mean, the same thing with item C. It said this request may be made in person, by phone, or mail. I mean,
Add email or.
yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know. Not if you don't take requests that way, for example, then don't add it. But if you would or are,
Yeah, we
it would
would.
make sense to do that.
Yeah, we would. We just never have. But
Okay.
I mean, I guess we can let people know. Made in person, by phone,
I mean, not
mail, or email.
want to read this.
Right.
Publicly.
Snail mail or.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess that probably is more of a general comment, just I'm assuming you did some of that, but just making sure that you've updated the those means of communication to include electronic.
Right.
So often those are overlooked because, they sit there for a while and.
Right, yeah, people are able to get our email address from our website, and I have had customers email me for various reasons, so
Okay.
there is that correspondence, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would probably be appropriate to add email in letter C you're saying, and letter B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or even a website too, I guess, if it's not a true email.
Okay.
I don't know if there's like a form you can fill out on the site but when I was looking at the rate changes, you may want to notify people by posting on your website that rates are changing.
Right.
In addition to whatever else you might do, so.
Okay. Yeah.
Or maybe it's all in the mail, I don't know. But
No, we do
I
that.
think we would
but-
post it on our website.
Mhm.
And in the future, we would have the ability to do, we have the ability to do email right now. Maybe that's something we need to look
Right.
at.
Mhm.
And I would suggest
Don't
it.
have a lot of people's email addresses.
That's what I
Right.
was gonna say.
Yeah.
Once they
Yeah.
they start flooding in, you capture that email address.
Yeah, and part of our capital budget is to kind of upgrade our online platform for people to, have an account, see their usage, get a bill by email.
Mhm.
So hopefully in the next 6 months, we can develop something where the email will come in handy.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah.
Maybe an email that their usage is exceeding what they used last month. That would
Yeah,
be
right.
interesting. But it definitely capture those emails as they come in for your questions or concerns from our consumer, our members out there, so.
Right. Any other comments on 5.1? Okay, moving on to 5.2, minor change. We added billed by 5 p.m. That's when the office closes. If their payment is not received by 5 p.m., we check the Dropbox, we check online payments, we check with the city, then late charges are posted, but we just thought it'd be, if anybody ever called us out, like, oh, I had it there, 8 p.m. Well, at least we have 5 p.m. on here.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily advocating this, but I think it is maybe time for a discussion of this. The $10 late payment fee. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is, in general, I guess, I don't know what Lowell, the water city does with the water. But again, I'm looking at credit card companies, the banks. I mean, you're seeing late payment fees of $25 to $35. And I don't know if what the impact is if we would change, because we went to $10. I'm going to say it's 7-8 years ago or longer.
Right.
And I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about it, and I don't know how that would impact the bottom line, whether that's an incentive for people to pay their, $10 is not a huge, but all of a sudden if it's $35 or $25, it might be more of an incentive to make sure that your bill's paid on time, et cetera. And I just think it's time that I'm not advocating that we do that for the people out there, but I think it's time for that discussion to take place and find out what would be if you go back, Steve, and you could do analyze what kind of effect that would have on our bottom line, and
Right.
and I just get the feel from what the other board members think about that.
We actually have some of that information to present later.
We do have in 5.5, there's kind of a fee schedule, not particular late fees.
That's what I was looking for, sheets.
I know we haven't updated this $10 plus 2%, like you said, 6 or 7
There it
years,
is.
but in conversations with other utilities, I do feel our fee is probably on the higher side, although they have many fees in other places we don't. So I think a slight increase could be good, but there are a number of people that do get late charges. And if we doubled it to 20 or 30, I think it would almost have to be a tiered approach. Then there's people that are just chronically late. And maybe it would help them, maybe it wouldn't, but we do get around $6,000 of late charges a month added to our revenue. So in a year, $70,000. So I can do a little analysis on that, but
Yeah.
we are going to be talking about fees in 5.5, so.
I just don't want to late fee people and push them away from the table. That's my fear from usage. Once that happens, you know, and I know that $10 is very low, but
Right.
I just don't want to push them further away from the table either, as far as making the late fee higher. I don't know.
It also includes 2% of the bill, right?
Yeah.
How much of that is, what's the typical bill compared to the $10?
I mean, the
like
average
2%.
customer bill is $70, so the 2% would be like $1.40.
Okay, so it's not much.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really that 2% just has an impact on industrial type
Yeah.
or commercial users.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions on 5.2? 5.3. There were a number of changes in 5.3. In Section A, we're proposing eliminating the first and last sentences. Through one of my semi-annual meetings in Lansing, we learned that if you charge a security deposit, you have to charge it to everyone. So this first sentence was talking about if they satisfy credit history requirements, we could potentially waive a late fee, where by the letter of the law, we're not allowed to do that. A lot of utilities do the credit check and they might waive it, but if you ever got called out on something like that, you're not allowed to do that. The last sentence, we do require a Michigan driver's license or social security card. From my understanding, we are allowed to have one of the two to make sure that is them at that address and they're not someone else who, you know, they're not Billy and they're actually Bob. So we're allowed to require that information. So there's no point in saying that they might not have to give it to us. The other changes, we're eliminating the word in advance. We do take security deposit through arrangements. If somebody's security deposit is going to be $270, we might say, okay, we'll take $135 this month, $135 next month. And if they don't meet that requirement, that red sentence, failure to pay a security deposit may result in termination of service until the deposit requirements have been met. So we're not going to say you owe us this right now, but we'll make an arrangement with you. If you don't keep your arrangements, then we can terminate your service. Does anybody have any questions on letter A?
No, I think that's good. I've heard, you know, people go, wow, that's a big deposit. It's nice that we can work with them and spread that out.
We're willing to spread it out. I mean, if it's a weekly or bi-weekly or a monthly payment, correct, Sharon?
Right.
And I think people appreciate that, I mean, there was an individual whose wife had cancer and just couldn't come up with the money, and so we made it 3 months or 4 months, and he made the payment over 4 months. So, you know, we're willing to work with people.
Good.
Looking at kind of the summary page, it says E, separate at the customers into section F. So you'll see section F on your page. It says at the customer's request after 13 months. What is now proposed section F used to be part of section E. We just thought section E and section F are two different ideas, so we just wanted to split those apart. So it's just restructuring. And then in what is now Section E, we're adding that failure to pay any additional security deposit may result in termination. So that sentence is just being added. And then what was letter F is now letter G. So in the original policy you would find online, what you see as letter G used to be letter F. Does that make sense? And probably the biggest change of 5.3 was the addition of H. It is kind of wordy, but there were many ideas that we wanted to get across, and it was all about the transfer of service. Say somebody lives on Main Street and they're moving to Smith Street, for example. How do we handle that transfer? So I'll go ahead and read that, and if you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, it can be, you might have to read it a few times. So any customer requesting a new account X with a current active account Y will be required to meet the security deposit requirements of Section A, as well as pay the past due balance on the current account Y before a new request will be accepted. The security deposit of the disconnected account Y will first A, be applied to any balance owing after the final meter reading, and then B, transferred to the new active account X after the final bill is paid in full, or C, refunded. No payment will be applied to the new account X until the discontinued account Y is paid in full. What we would have happening is somebody sets up a new account and they never pay off the balance on their old account, and then they say, well, I just want to pay this balance on this new address so I don't get shut off. But we're like, hey, you have this old account. Oh, we've had people say in the last 2-3 years, well, I don't see any policy on that. Well, this just kind of spells it into words that you need to pay off your old account, you need a security deposit. On your new account, you can't transfer the security deposit until the old account is paid in full. So it's kind of wordy, but if you read it a few times, I think it says what we wanted to get across to customers.
I think there's a typo in the 5th line. It says owning. It should probably be owing. Balance. So
You're right.
Nice catch.
Thank you.
I like it.
yeah, no, excellent.
I like
well
that.
done.
This is probably one of the
Absolutely.
biggest problems we do have when you say, Sharon,
Yes.
And you talked to the girls in the office that handle the billing about this? This is what?
These
are from our girls?
Julie and Gail
Good.
and Megan and Sharon.
Yeah, because they're the experts.
Yes.
And they're the ones that are facing this.
Transfer, they say, why can't I transfer my deposit? But if that account's not paid off, that deposit is for that first account.
Yeah, and the problem, let's just say, for example, right now, it's December 11th. Meter reading happens next week. So let's say they want to move right now, the 15th. Their meter will get read maybe the 18th. Their bill will come December 31st, due January 20th. So they have all this old balance hanging out, and we've transferred their deposit. And anyway, this kind of solves that problem.
And even sometimes people, like, if they get divorced or whatever, then it goes into a different name. And so they want to pay off the account that's in their name, and they don't want to pay off one that's in their husband's name. Even though they were receiving service. So.
The social aspects of our.
But in that scenario you just said, this would not address that scenario.
No,
They
but
would
there
just
is
say-
another section that does address it.
Okay,
right,
good.
Steve? Yes.
Yep.
No, I love that. H,
H.
big star on H. Good job. Tell the girls, good job.
Okay, moving on to 5.4. 5.4 is very similar to 5.3. It's just this is commercial security deposits. In 5.3, letter A, you'll notice that it says $110 is the minimum. We did not have an amount listed in 5.4A. That amount was actually listed in 5.5, so we're just proposing making it consistent. Instead of having it in 5.5, we're moving it to 5.4 just to say 250. So that's kind of it's not proposing a new amount, it's just spelling it out in this section. And then similar with 5.3, we're proposing taking out the word in advance and adding that failure to pay. In letter D, we're proposing taking out the last sentence, if a review of the customer's account. This idea is similar to what we're proposing to add in letter F about the refund of a surplus of a deposit. We just thought it would be easier keeping consistent language as the residential policy, and if they want to request it, they can, but we're not going to just do periodic reviews on our own after 13 months. So, and then in letter E, adding that failure to pay language again.
And then there's a spelling, just
Is that the?
many, do, many result. Should be
It said may.
May result. That's in
Yeah.
E.
Oh, yeah.
E.
Trying to keep it great.
Any questions on 5.4?
And then if you go to the H, that same thing that Greg saw in the residential owning, balance owning after,
Yep.
should be owing.
Okay.
Well, you're ahead.
There you go.
Okay, 5.5. This is the fees and customer charges. And I did make a little spreadsheet. The first couple fees, the meter reading fee and the new account fee, $20 each. We feel this is sufficient to cover our costs. We don't want to have a new customer be paying much more than $40 worth of fees and scare them away. Regarding the meter set, the CTs for commercial customer, this isn't incredibly common, but Greg, I believe with Lighthouse just had CTs, right? Installed, and that takes our guys coming in potentially on a Saturday, and the time is really unknown. So $40 doesn't nearly cover our cost. So I'm proposing a minimum charge, but adding a couple asterisks, and 2 asterisks. I don't think I put them on the sheet, but 2 asterisks, as you can see in the bottom. These are minimum charges subject to adjustment to reflect actual cost. So I think we should up the minimum to something more realistic of what they can expect, but also have asterisks. And let's say it takes 2 of our guys 3 hours on a Saturday, and we're gonna have to pay that overtime. The least we can do is recoup our costs for our guys doing something like that.
So you're saying that this 40 should have 2 stars next to it?
Yes.
Okay.
And adjust the 40 upwards.
Oh, so you'd like a higher base and the asterisk, okay.
But I mean, that's up for discussion if you guys don't feel.
Yeah, how often does that happen?
Half a dozen times a year.
Yeah, if that. And these are for like larger customers.
And a customer is only likely to do it once every couple of years? It's not like a certain customer would have it 3 times in a year?
Once it's done,
No, once
it's
it's
done.
done.
Okay.
It's a one-time thing where we have to set them up with this.
Sure. What are you thinking, 75 or something, or?
Yeah, I would say minimum 75 to 100 would be much closer to
Right.
what it would cost us. If you took a couple hours of a guy's time with overhead and things like that. With trucks.
We do get substantial revenue from our commercial customers. As a business owner, you try not to piss off your customers.
Right.
And, you know, I'd rather leave it at the 75 and, you know, with the option of increasing it if it does turn into significant time. But I'd almost rather take a little bit of a, if it's something that happens so rarely, take a little bit of a beating on it and not upset our customers by going, wow, it was $100 to get them out here. I mean, even though it's a bargain,
Right.
it costs us more, but I think looking at our revenue, we can absorb a little bit of that.
True.
If it does turn into more, but it just,
Right.
but just,
It's kind of the same philosophy as with the residential rate. Isn't that why you said you were leaving those at 20 because you don't?
Yeah, with the
people starting out
residential,
on
this
that.
top two are really just creating the new account, going through that paperwork, setting things up on DAFRON, and actually
okay.
going and taking a meter read. This setting of the CTs, that it can involve guys coming in on a Saturday and switching things up.
What's a CT?
Current transformer?
So residential wouldn't have those then?
No.
No.
Do all commercial customers need those?
No.
Yeah, I guess that's hard to say. I mean, if it's something special they would need, I can kind of see a special fee going with it, but
I mean, we can keep it at
It's
40 if you guys want to keep it at 40, or...
well, I think,
I mean, I kind of go along with what you're seeing is that it typically costs X amount, and that, I don't know what it typically costs, but if you're saying that even at 75 or 100, we still wouldn't be covering us. I would think a commercial customer would know that if they want to have a special transformer that doesn't come, cheap necessarily.
Right.
I don't know. I guess it's something I'm not that familiar with in the industry, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
To say what use your best judgment and
Right.
and I'll support it. But
If we start at 75, post it at 75, we still have the asterisk here that says that we could, we ran into that this did run a bit longer, so we're starting it at 75, and this would need to be, your bill is going to be 150. It could
Right.
hit 150.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't like a huge deal. I just know the last time these numbers have been updated at the earliest was '07. So granted, costs have increased, and to keep something at the base rate
yeah.
for a we might not
Yeah.
have these for another couple of years. It could be a decade since
Yeah.
costs have changed.
What's it typically cost to do a set of those CTs?
I would say at least an hour with two guys.
With the truck.
I
And
guess
then it would be on, a lot of times it would be on a weekend.
so the majority of the time.
Yeah, because the business will need to be shut down.
It has to be.
Or they won't.
Yeah.
And if we had it at 75 and it is a weekend and two guys are there, we need to charge a little more. It doesn't happen that much, but I think 40 is too low. And I like the fact that you're looking at these things and
I
adjusting them.
am too.
So,
What does it typically cost though? Because if we had to send two guys out there for an hour. On a
Two
weekend,
guys out there for an hour with a truck is probably close to
$120, $130
between
with overtime
125 and
and truck.
$130.
Okay.
So 75 would still be a deal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
we don't need the asterisk. Maybe we'll say we're going to give them a $50 break, and it's just going to cost 75.
At least
Well,
the
but you
ask,
said that sometimes they cost more depending on.
right, the asterisks give us the option, and it's
Yeah.
still a discretionary item. We're not necessarily gonna bill somebody $103 when they paid
Right.
75,
Right.
but we will bill somebody $400 when
Mhm.
they paid 75.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
what if they ran into complications and Mark and Tom were out there for 4 hours
Right.
each on a Saturday afternoon?
yeah, I think you need the discretionary part of it in there for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So whatever you want to put as the base limit.
Are you guys good with 75
Whatever you think is good
with the
Sure.
asterisks?
I am.
Okay. Okay, going on down, meter read, read meter at customer's request, and test meter at customer's request. We really only want to charge this fee if the meter's okay. And the read meter at the customer's request did not have that fee incurred if read is correct. But we don't really charge that, but there will be times where maybe there's a high billing month where the customer will say, well, I want my meter checked. Well, if it's correct and we pull a guy, you know, it can just inconvenience us and,
Yeah.
you know, take somebody off the job and have him go read a meter. But if the meter reads correct, then we would charge the fee. But again, this would be a discretionary item.
Right, now,
So
when
it's like
somebody
challenge
calls
play.
with that, do we go and pull the meter and send it to Steve's Meters to check it, or do we?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah. And if the meter's,
Wow.
you know, broken, we're not gonna charge a fee.
Right.
But if we do pay Steve the $25, we're just recovering our cost. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So when you say correct, how far off does it have to be incorrect?
Well,
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of the customer who you come back and say, no, it's right. He's like, no, it's off by .02, and you know, at what you know,
The
I,
.02 isn't gonna have any impact on his bill, so it's not gonna make a difference.
I mean, I'm just making a number up, but I mean, I'm just wondering if there's somewhere where you'd say, well, this is correct enough. I mean,
yeah, well,
you know,
Well,
there's always gonna be one of those-
we don't get that detailed of information back from Steve's meter service.
It's either good or bad.
Either it's on or it's bad.
I mean, the reading the meter. I'm talking about when you said you read the meter to see if it's.
we will maybe I shouldn't say never, but if somebody's bill is 100 or 100 lower, 100 either way, we're not gonna, I mean, if somebody's bill is 500 more, we might get a call. Okay, we can go check your meter. We'll be able to tell if it was read correctly just based on what the meter book said and what it reads now, and look at their average daily use. But if we were a digit off, like 1,000, then we'll be able to tell it was incorrect. So we're just determining
Okay.
if what the meter reader wrote down logically was the correct number. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
There's no way to there's no
You're
way to
not-
determine the actual number at the time it was read.
Right. Okay.
We're just,
I thought you were like kind of looking to see if it was measuring the your electricity correctly. And I was like, well, if you're reading, if your calibration's off or something, but.
No, we don't do that. That's when we
That's
send
not
them to
your-
Steve's.
Okay, so that would be a Steve thing.
This
Okay.
is just a clerical error on the reading. How often does that happen?
Makes sense.
you know, there's 2,500 meters. There might be 12 to 15.
A month? It does happen then.
It does
Okay,
happen. A
just
lot
curious.
of times it does happen with a dial-faced
Yeah.
meter with a clock face,
Yeah.
where it's just right on the edge and probably should take a little bit longer. But that should come up in our variance report. And all the variance reports are given to Ron, and he'll go and actually check he'll take a reading and compare it to what the meter reader had. And you can tell, you know, maybe Ron got 8,000, but the meter reader had 9,000 or something like that. And you can tell they would have used 1,000 kilowatt hours in 2 days, or, you know what I mean?
So we catch a lot of them ourselves before the customer does, right?
Yeah, there might be one or two, and there's continual software problems of why things don't appear on a variance report, and we get data from that, so. Setting a service pole for the customer's purpose. This is very rare, but I'm just proposing adding 2 asterisks, because nowadays a pole will cost $125. So, you know, just saying 125 is the minimum, but you're gonna have to pay for the pole and possibly the guy's labor. So, pretty minor.
Now, so is that a temporary pole, or is that an actual? They're buying the pole?
Yeah, it'd
I
be
mean,
like a
so for
security
instance,
light.
I'm talking about like, I'm putting up a brand new house and I need a temporary pole put in. So you're charging $125, and then that pole's that person's, or are we going back and taking the pole out and refunding any money, or we're making another $125 because we got the pole back?
Usually the electrician on a new house sets a temporary pole. I don't think,
We don't.
We will
Yeah.
set a
Okay.
temporary pole.
I'm just,
We might hook up temporary service, but we
right,
don't.
somebody else sets the temporary pole.
This would be like a security light or something,
okay.
which is, I don't know if I've seen one in
Right,
my
just,
time here, but while we're updating the policies, I just thought it would be appropriate to add 2 asterisks in case it does happen.
yeah, 125 is too cheap.
Right. Yeah, being a pole could easily cost that by itself or more. The next couple, we do not charge $20 for someone being on the termination list. We used to charge somebody $20 if they just were on the list to be terminated. We thought we're just not going to penalize somebody for being on the list. We're only going to charge them the fee if they actually get terminated. So I crossed this off, and right now the next line you say termination charge. We're charging $20 right now. And this is an area that I would like to talk about because I pulled other municipalities, and this is a disconnect reconnect fee. Here's the utilities. Here's what they charge during work hours, and this is what they charge after hours. As you can see, we're right here for $20, and there's some at $25, but there's places as high as $70, $50, $110, and the average of these 11 municipalities is $43. So,
I have a problem with it.
okay,
I don't have a problem if you want to change the lettering, the thing to disconnect, reconnect. But if I'm moving, I'm no longer need your service or whatever, I have a problem with charging somebody to no longer have that service.
Yeah,
I don't have a problem with going back out and they don't pay their bill, so they got disconnected, and now they come in and say, oh, here's my payment and I need to get reconnected. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm just saying personally, I have a problem with charging somebody for termination.
yeah, and I should clarify, this is non-payment termination. If you request to be terminated just because you're moving, we won't charge you.
No charge.
No charge. This is, we give you
We want to
$1,000.
clarify that in there. then.
Yeah, so that it would be like non-payment.
And I'm just telling you,
Due to
I have a problem with, even for non-payment, of charging somebody for termination. Because one, I don't, if it's non-payment, I don't think you're ever gonna get the money, to charge them more but see, what you're saying there to me is a disconnect, reconnect. Now, to reconnect them.
That's still what he's saying.
Huh? I know, but this doesn't say that. All it says is termination, and my mind, philosophically, if I'm being terminated, take your power and I'm done.
Well, we do have-
Reconnecting fee, then then I'm all for it. I'm just telling you what my views are.
But what if we disconnect you for non-payment?
Who covers that cost?
Who covers that cost?
Isn't that in their
Because
deposit?
we have tagged them, and we have gone out there, rolled a truck, knocked on their door, then disconnected them. The reason I and there are 3 to 7 or 8 people a month where we will disconnect them. They'll call us, pay to get reconnected. If we say to them, you incurred a $20 charge to be disconnected, you now need to pay that to get reconnected, I mean, that's already added to their bill then. Now you have to pay your past due plus the charge you were just charged, the $20 you were just charged because you were disconnected.
There's
I
a
mean-
cost to going out and disconnecting them.
So whether you want to call it a $20 fee to get reconnected, or you incurred the $20 charge once you were, or $20 fee once you were disconnected, I guess that's up to you guys, how you want to word it.
I'm just one person on the board. I'm just saying that I have.
But if somebody did leave, let's say we charge the $20 after they're disconnected, that'll be on their account. Let's say they skip town, we can go to online collections, and let's say someday they decide to get current on their balance, they'll pay us that $20. If we only charge the $20 after it's reconnected, that person is never paying us, even though we incurred cost. Do you see the difference?
I mean, I guess to me, I see it as non-payment incurs a cost because it's an unscheduled termination. You know, it's something that we have to, or you guys have to deal with that you shouldn't have to if they just paid, you know. Whereas somebody moving away, well, they're disconnecting, you know, that's.
And there's never a charge for that.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's not charged. It's just,
There's no
you know,
charge.
you let us know you're moving, you're disconnecting, you're paid up, okay, fine. Didn't cause us any, you know,
Right.
angst. So that's where I would just kind of maybe even change it to a, or at least clarify it's a termination due to non-payment, or it'd be nice if there was a word for that. But if not,
Perry, is your concern, I mean, if we change this to just, instead of termination charge, say disconnect, reconnect fee?
Disconnect,
fine with that.
reconnect fee.
Yeah,
Does that work?
yeah.
then it's assessed upon disconnect. Is that what you mean, or? Because I guess like you were saying that if some people are just going to stop paying, I mean, you could move town and just stop paying, you know, move out, but that causes a problem because then you're trying to figure out, hey, why aren't you paying your bills? Oh, you guys left.
Well, in this case, I think you can charge them the $20 for the disconnect or the reconnect, either one. That's what it's a disconnect, reconnect. But you don't have to actually have both.
Oh, okay, so you're saying it's either, okay.
Either or both. It's a $120 fee. If we disconnect, reconnect, or if we disconnect and we never hear from you again. You don't have to have,
Okay.
Right, and we're a bargain when you look at everybody else.
yes.
Yeah, we are the cheapest from the people I polled. I mean, there are a couple with 25 in here, Chelsea and Grand Haven, but as you can see, Harbor Springs is 110.
Tom Richards,
Yeah,
making money.
And then they have, then,
That, I couldn't deter, I don't know what their after hours is. Our after
City
hours
manager.
is 30 bucks. So, guess it's open to discussion. I would recommend some sort of increase.
Well, why would we do it after hours disconnect?
Because we have to pay
reconnect.
overtime. We have to pay overtime.
No, an after hours reconnect.
We will go out.
Oh,
If
a reconnect.
Let's say somebody gets
Okay.
disconnected and they really want to be turned on that night
Because they're freezing, yeah.
because they're freezing. Right now, we would charge 30 bucks.
so you're charging them $50?
No,
No.
one or the
Are
other.
you charging them, see, I'm
No,
looking
no,
at
no,
that,
no,
you're
no.
charging them $20 to unhook it, and then you're charging
No,
them
no.
$30 to hook it back up.
No,
No, the total fee for the entire process.
The work hours
It's 20.
in that, yeah.
See, there's where I'm getting, with the terminology, with the hang up, I'm getting, all of a sudden, you're going, here's a 20, I'm unhooking you, there's a $20 fee. Now, because that's termination, now I want to get hooked back up, I didn't pay my bill, I got cut off, I want to get hooked back up. Are we charging them another 20 or another
No,
30?
We're not.
That's what we're saying.
But we could if you wanted to.
See,
We could.
See, I have, to me, whatever, I have more of on the reconnect side than it is the disconnect side.
I understand
We're
that,
making
but-
2 trips for everybody, because we're
Right.
shutting them off and we're going back and we're doing it for $20. It's really $10 a trip at this point,
Right.
Right.
or 15.
But to cover Steve's situation where we disconnect somebody and they say, well, to heck with you, my lease is up, I'm hitting the road.
They don't get charged any fee if we only charge it if we reconnected them.
Right.
I understand that.
And we
But
have
if they're
people
hitting-
come
but
back.
if they're hitting the road,
We have
But
a,
at least we have a chance.
but it's amazing
Yeah.
how many
As
people
opposed to
will
not
come
having
back,
They
or
do
they'll
come back
switch
after
to
a
a
few years.
spouse's name at a different apartment.
And
Well,
do
we
the
can
same
go ahead
thing.
and collect that, but, oh, well, you never reconnected it, so even though we rolled the tag, or we went and hanged the tag, we went and sent a guy to shut you off, that didn't cost anything, even though our guy could have been doing something else with their time for light and power. We had to spend 45 minutes through that entire process, you know what I mean? We can do whatever you guys want, but I think,
I personally don't have a problem with the termination or the disconnect side charge, because to me it's, you're causing a problem by, you know, by not living up to your end of the bargain as a customer. If you're not going to pay to the point that we have to disconnect, you know, that's where we incur the issues. If you're going to reconnect, okay, well, welcome back, thanks for paying up, and that's fine. But I kind of like the idea of saying, hey, if you're just going to leave us hanging, well, about paying something on your building. But if, you know, if it's a scheduled thing where they're moving away and they let you know, then yeah, that makes sense, that we wouldn't charge that. 'cause
Right.
It's like, all right, well, you know, good luck where you're going, and that's fine.
I can see what you're trying to do here. You don't, there's these people that are continuously on this, you know, next thing you know, you see this, you know, them show up again, and this is gonna go, we're gonna go through this barrage again, and it's gonna be unhappiness for both sides of the fence here, because then they're gonna, what, I see what you're saying is that, you know, why don't we go to the $43 and, let's be the average. Let's go right for it. And that's how I feel. If you need help, that's one thing about Lowell, is I know that I could go to the From, and it doesn't matter that I'm Tina Cadwalder and I've got a nice house. I can go to them and say, I've really ran into a problem here and I need your help, and they'd help me pay this bill. You know, I feel, why don't we bring this up to this? Bring it from 20, bring it up.
Right, I think it needs to be increased. If we just call it the disconnect, reconnect, you're not getting people that are questioning the terminology.
No.
And they just, $20 is cheap. For 2 trips, we're losing money. And this happens a lot more than the commercial ones do, that we were just talking about for 75. So I think we need to be at $40 and 60 for the after hours. I mean, double it.
I think it needs to change to the terminology disconnect, reconnect, but I think it needs to go,
Okay.
I think it needs to go higher than that. To go out,
Okay.
to physically go out and reconnect, and I'm just thinking of, it's back to the discussion that I had earlier, whether that,
$10 plus 2%.
you know, the $10, you know, I guess I'm kind of like, there needs to be some kind of incentive for somebody to pay their bill on time, so that we're not writing off $10,000 every year.
Right.
Type situation. And again, if it's just $30, oh, I'm not gonna pay my bill, I'm gonna get the 10, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, here's $20, okay. Well, I just think it needs to be higher. I mean,
No, that's fine.
I'm looking at, if we're talking about sending a truck and a person out, even if it's, by the time they leave here and go, that's probably a minimum of an hour of that person's time.
I would agree. Maybe not quite, yeah, it's gonna be close to an hour.
Because we tag
Increasing-
also, and it's right, tag.
Increasing the cost may cut the number of disconnects in half too, that these chronic people. If you have chronic, that it's happening 3-4 times a year with, when it costs them $60 instead of 20.
Right. Yeah, they definitely would have an incentive to not get disconnected.
How about 45 and 90?
Because that's
Yeah, after hours it's expensive. Yeah, that way they'll wait till the morning instead of.
Okay. Let's go with, we are,
What's the board's consensus on that, the 45 and 90? Is that
I'm
enough
good
for
with
you,
that.
Perry?
Yeah,
Okay.
Whatever
I'm
number,
just,
I'll leave you guys
It
with the
needed to
numbers,
go
but
up.
I think that the notion of it should be a little more is fine. And I do think that the after hours needs to be more than just 50% more. That, like the 20-30 is just,
Right. Right. So that's close to the average, 45 and 90.
Yeah,
No, I thought we were okay, I just wanted to ask. So,
Okay.
That's
Are you
good.
gonna separate those out, Steve, to do a disconnect fee and then a reconnect fee?
No,
I
we're
think
just
we're
making
calling
it,
it a disconnect/reconnect fee.
So that if
one or
it's
the
only
other.
a disconnect, you can go after those people, but if it's both, they're just gonna get one.
Right, yes.
Gotcha.
Gives you the option to,
Yes, they won't get feed twice.
no.
For the disconnect fee, it's just one $45 charge.
but it's just for the permanent, this is just for disconnects due to
Non-payment.
Non-payment.
And that will be also relabeled.
yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you wanted to add in there, you know, scheduled disconnects or whatever, 0 or, I don't know. Just so, I just be, you know, if people are concerned about it, but if you've never had a problem with it, then just don't bother, just make the fix we talked about.
Okay.
You gonna mention the tags here, Steve?
Yeah,
Okay.
that I have, is right under theft of service.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So what are door hanger tags?
Let's quick.
Or do you wanna just-
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
work it out.
wait till we get there. I'm sorry, I didn't see it down there.
Security light connection. I'm just proposing adding 2 asterisks.
Mhm.
In case it does take a couple hours to do. We're just gonna, we have the ability to charge the actual cost instead of being stuck at the 35. Eliminating the commercial security deposit minimum of $250. We moved that to section 5.4 earlier. Theft of service. This does not happen often. Right now, we would charge $100 plus the cost of their energy.
So how does theft of service happen? You just tap into a line somewhere and...
Here's, well, I did not do this, but my old meter that was inside the house had old inline fuses before the meter. I could
Okay.
physically pull those fuses out, and it had no effect on my meter, and I could actually bypass, then pull those out. I could take 2 cables, run them bypass
Oh.
my meter,
Mhm.
and then physically put the fuses back in, and I'd be stealing power from Lowell Light and Power.
Mhm.
That's how you would do it.
So just bypassing the meter basically.
Mhm.
Tom probably could give you a list of reasons, but I don't know if we want to
And
have all those on.
So how do you...
Yeah, no.
Oh, so it's actual estimated energy.
So if you find an extension cord from your neighbors to your house, this would come into play too.
No.
No, they would
You're
be
stealing
paying
from
for
your
the
neighbor.
electricity.
You're just stealing from
Okay, so
your
nobody
neighbor.
would know.
Right.
Well, your
So you
neighbor.
can do that, Tina.
For the neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
When they put their Christmas lights out there, just
Yeah.
hook right into those.
Put a 3-way out there and you got it.
There you go. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then the last under this section, discuss door tag hanger fee. Today, the process works, the bill's due on the 20th. The first business day of the next month, we go ahead and send out a shut-off letter to all customers with a past due balance of over $10. A few days later, they'll get an automated phone call reminding them of their letter and that the payment's due by X and X day. Please give Lowell Light and Power a call. The day before we actually will shut off, the girls in the office go ahead and print out pieces of paper of all the customers who still haven't contacted us or who haven't paid us or made an arrangement to pay on a different day. We then write up a tag. It's like a little lime green tag that says you'll be disconnected tomorrow by this time, and then it says some language about calling our office or
Oh,
make
so
a
it's just
payment.
a
or-
shut off notice you post on the door basically.
Yeah, it's like a little green tag or
Tag,
hanger.
yeah.
Today we had 82
Wow.
that we had to do where we have to handwrite them manually. Ron spent 4 hours and 15 minutes his time going and hanging all these 82 tags, and of course right after you get phone calls from everybody, and we don't have a fee for this. We are collecting at, the $10 plus 2% on the front end when there is a late charge. We did just re-up the shut-off or the disconnect reconnect to 45. Do we want to discuss having a fee for this or not? We are spending a significant amount of time, but we are collecting this $10 on the front end as well.
No, but when you're sending out a shut off notice, you're not collecting fees on that, right?
No.
No,
You're getting the late fee money.
you're getting the late fee, which happens after the due
Right.
date.
If you did 80 of them in 4 hours, you can do 20 an hour. I'm not sure that, personally, I want to see charging for the tags yet at this point. We've doubled our disconnect fees are actually a little more than doubled them. We've tripled our after hours, trying to keep the guys at home at night. But to charge $5 for a tag, that creates more administrative work to charge the fees. We could look at this maybe next time we review policies, but.
One idea that I had, and I'll just throw that out, a lot of utilities, and I don't have a number, I just know of some that do, they do that. They charge a $5 fee, a $4 fee, $6 fee, but then that money goes into their A-plus fund. So that's how they, they collect that fee from their customer. It's another incentive to call us and get that bill taken care of. But they donate that money to their A-plus fund.
Out of the 10 you have up there, only 2 are charging a door tag fee at this point.
Right.
Well, I guess to me it seems weird is that you charge a fee to hang the door tag and then the next day shut them off and charge a fee for that. So I kind of see it as if they miss a payment, there's a late fee there, and if you have to get shut off, well, then there's another fee. And I think if you're just putting more in the middle, it's just going to annoy people.
Okay, no, that's fine, and we don't care, we've never done it, but there are
Yeah.
people that do, and
Yep,
I mean,
good
if
discussion.
If it's that expensive, you might have to consider increasing the late fee or something like that, just to kind of say, well, like if you don't pay on time, these things tend to happen, and someone's got to pay for it.
I agree, Andrew. That's
Itemizing it is just kind of
$15 instead of 10.
a more palatable way of doing it, is just
Yeah.
charging on one of the other fees, building it into that, so rather than adding a third.
It's not it's not fair to the people that are paying on time and everything, that there's this cost involved. But again, I'm kind of like, I'm with Greg in that, and I think the rest, it's kind of like nickel and diming a person to death. Here's this 5 cents here, and here's this $1 here, and here's this $5 here, and this. I look at it as a business. Okay, we have X. It's just like the bad debt. We have X amount of bad debt that we write off every year, and what that does is that actually we raise, or we calculate what we need to have for our rates, and that's calculated into the rates, and everybody pays a portion of that, and that's part of doing business. I think we have, we take some risk also. I'm not, again, doing tags. I'd rather see us raise the late payment to $25 to $20 or whatever, if covering their cost is a real big issue. So that's where I come from.
okay.
Okay.
So is all the effort to put up a door tag, I mean, is that worth it? Did you get enough people that come back and pay and say, oh, don't shut
Oh,
me off?
absolutely.
Yes.
That-
Yeah,
that-
2/3 of them pay, don't they?
Right.
It'll go from
More.
82 to 8.
Okay.
And then we make phone calls also.
And we make a personal phone
Yeah.
call tomorrow
Okay.
morning before we actually shut them off.
So it
And I-
sounds like that even though it's kind of expensive to send someone out there for 4 hours, that
It
still
works.
is worth it. And that
And I
finally
think we
gets
are
them-
covering our cost with the initial $10 plus 2%. It's just we're covering it there instead of right here.
Okay.
And our staff is doing a great job on collecting those and working with the customers, because
Yeah.
years ago, we didn't do the things that we're doing now, that our office staff and that Steve are doing, and contacting and working and being more personable with our customers and everything. And again, I know we're having this discussion, but I want to say that our staff is doing a great job working with our customers, and trying to help our customers out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think so too.
So the next time you guys go to hang door tags, maybe there should be somebody walking around with Christmas gifts too,
Right.
Leave a present along with a tag.
Please.
See if Rob Bliss wants to.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next section, partial payment administrative fee. $10. We had charged this a couple years ago. We currently do not charge it. We're just proposing eliminating this. This would be if somebody says I can pay 50 of my 100 now, 50 in a week, the remaining 50 in a week, we would charge them $10. We're not doing that. Like Perry said, we don't want to, here's a fee, there's a fee, here's another fee. If they tell us they'll pay us in a week from now, okay, great. We'll be able to live with waiting a week, and we're not going to charge you a $10, arrangement fee.
So you're just saying that partial payment means they just have to have a plan on file with,
Yes.
okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And then we changed the service, I didn't have it highlighted in red, but we changed that last line to $90. So, service call, after hours, weekend, and holiday. Do you want to kind of align that with the disconnect, reconnect fee? After hours is $90, so.
Well,
I guess what's a service call mean? Like, is it because something broke that needs to get fixed, or is it because they just wanted something?
I want to move,
upgraded, or-
I would say, here's an example. I went from above ground to below ground, so that meant they've got to come out and it's a service call. I'm changing my power or whatever, so there's a cost involved in that. But wouldn't you, in the service call, wouldn't you have a regular hours and then after hours? Wouldn't you have two rates? I mean, I'm just seeing that both of these are after hours, and one's a pickup truck with one person, the other one's a line. I mean, it's a line truck with a crew or whatever. But when you have a service call,
Is there
cost.
no charge during the day? Then, if it's just after hours is when there's a charge?
I don't know if we do have a charge during the day, and most people don't call us out of the blue on the weekend.
I mean, I would.
I don't think we do charge during the day because somebody wanted to cut a tree down and they said as long as it's during hours, we can, take our lines down while you cut the tree down. But if it's after hours, there'll be a charge.
Sharon's
Yeah.
correct.
Normally,
Okay.
we don't charge a fee during the day. If we have staff on hand, we'll dispatch them to help without a charge. But if they want it done after hours, then we charge.
And there's two different levels depending which truck you're getting out there.
Right. Now, looking at it now, a pickup truck, one person, that third line, after hours service call, probably be best just to have that deleted, have one charge of the $90 if it's after hour service call, which would be consistent with the disconnect, reconnect, $90 charge.
Yeah.
And then if there's any service call during hours, we'll continue to do what we've been doing, where there won't be a charge.
Well, and I understand these are minimum charge, the asterisk, these are minimum charges. I understand that. I guess if we're defining some things, I guess, and maybe we don't, because I guess maybe it could change year to year or whatever, but like I guess I would be looking at, okay, what's a service call? Is it $75 per hour? I know you have, like if I have to go out and repair some carpeting or whatever, and I think Greg has, if they have a service call that they go out, it's a minimum X amount of dollars, and then if it's a job that lasts 1 hour, 2 hours, and then there's an hourly rate above and beyond that. And that's what you're getting at with these are the minimum charges,
Right.
I guess I'm used to seeing, okay, here's a service call is $85, for us to come out to your house, and then here's an hour, and then an hourly rate on top of that. And that's
Right.
kind of what we're talking about with the minimum
Right, except for us, the hourly rate could change depending on whether it's one man or two men or a pickup truck or a digger truck or, so that's why we thought